this virtual event. A lot of people who wouldn't be able to join normally we're now able to connect with, which is really great. We thought that rather than postponing it indefinitely, getting together virtually is better than not gathering at all. So just keep in mind that this is our first virtual event, so please bear with us if there's any technical difficulties along the way. But for a lot of us at the iBank, the Recipient Luncheon is one of our favorite events, one that I know a lot of people have been looking forward to all year. So we're very grateful to have all of you here with us today. Not that you really have anything else to do, so we kind of have an active audience, which is nice. But we know that even though it's a little different this year, it'll be good. And our in-person 6th annual event next year, we know will be even better than ever. All right, let's go to our next slide. This is a picture from, I believe, 2 recipient lunches ago. And it's kind of sad that we won't have everyone together in person, but this is the next best thing. So one of the common themes that you'll hear throughout the event today is that transplantation really works. I can personally attest to that, as I had my corneal transplant in my right eye in September of 2015. And this photo that you see on the screen is where I attended the recipient lunch as a guest in 2017. And I received a framed copy of my newsletter presented to me by Geraldine. This is something that we were supposed to present in person to the Steer family today. You'll get to know the Steers a little later on in the program. But I've been working at the iBank for close to a year now, and it feels pretty good to be on the opposite side and get to give back in a small way. So with us virtually this morning, we are very, very thankful and honored to have with us Eileen Brady and Thomas Smith to share with us their musical talent. Eileen is actually a cornea transplant recipient herself. And before she performs, she's going to share a little bit about her story. Tom was born with congenital glaucoma, and he lost his vision fully around the age of 7. But what he lacks in conventional sight, he makes up for in incredible musical talent. Mm-hmm. And it's my pleasure now to introduce to you Eileen Brady.
Hi, everybody. It's an honor to be here with you today via Zoom. I've worked as a vocalist and an actress, which includes using my voice in many TV and radio commercials, and my livelihood depends on being able to read lyrics and scripts. And if my eyes don't work, I don't work. 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with Fuchs dystrophy in both eyes. For those of you who may not know, with Fuchs dystrophy, the corneal cells in the 4th layer down, they don't do their job of removing the fluid. And so as those cells die, fluid and pressure build, and it creates a misty and cloudy vision. It's like looking through a foggy glass all the time and you see halos around lights. So about 2 years after my diagnosis, my left eye got a lot worse. And I had just, it was quite extreme sensitivity to light, and reading became difficult, and I could look, you know, from up close directly in a mirror, and I couldn't see any detail. And I know that for some of you, it might seem like a relatively minor inconvenience to say I wasn't able to apply makeup, but, you know, remember, I was making my living as a performer, and being able to apply makeup was important in my work. And of course, so was being able to read. So I had the surgery in 2016, and unlike the case so often with other types of transplant surgery, there was no wait. A cornea became available, and it's not actually an entire cornea. So my surgery required just one very small layer of endothelial cells in the 4th layer down, the one that was diagnosed. I don't know how the doctors ever figured out how to do this, but it was successful. And after seeing the world once again in its beautiful crystal clarity, I thought, you know, first I thought, where did this blessing come from? Who was this person besides being an angel? And I was blown away by the fact that I was seeing the world with a part of the eye through which they saw, and I was overcome with emotion and deeply grateful for their gift, a gift that is a blessing beyond words that I could ever use to describe it. And as I rediscovered a world that had been for too long much more than a cluster of dark, shapeless shadows, I really felt this donor's presence, and I was honored by their subtle positive influence. So my vision now is pretty close to perfect. Well, okay, I need glasses to read, but I'm old. I get regular checkups and the cells are healthy and they're doing their job. I don't have any more light sensitivity or halos or cloudy vision. And I can read my scripts and sing the lyrics to songs. And so my right eye has been in a holding pattern, thank God, and I don't need surgery yet, but I am confident that when the time comes, I'll be in very good hands. I am forever grateful to the angel who gave me my eyesight, as well as their family. And I thank the Lions Eye Bank of Delaware Valley, the region's corneal transplant bank since 1957. Because of them, the wish of donors and their families to help someone becomes a reality. They help families like you connect with people like me who need their help. And I hope that my story, which I wanted so much to share with you today, can give you some sense of just how critical and generous and really deeply appreciated the gift given by you and your loved ones has been. So thank you so much for keeping the miracle of sight a reality for me and for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eileen. That was beautifully said, and we're so thankful that you're here with us today and that you're here to share your story. Later on in the program, there'll actually be time for anyone else who feels inclined to share something with us. But right now, we are very lucky to have Eileen and Tom. They pre-recorded a musical duet, and Eileen was able to put it together to make sure that it plays seamlessly. And while we play the song, we're going to go around and spotlight different people that are here with us today, just to make it a little more interactive. So without further ado, please enjoy Tom and Eileen's song, L-O-V-E.
L is for the way you look at me. O is for the only one I see. V is very, very extraordinary. Is even more than anyone that you adore, and love is all that I can give to you. Love is more than just a game for two. Two in love can make it. Take my heart, but please don't break it. Love was made for me and you. Oh, L is for the way you look. You're looking at me. And O is for the only one I see. B is so very, very extraordinary. Now he is even more than anyone that you adore. And love is all I'm gonna give to you. Oh, love is more than just a game for two. Two in love can make it. Take my heart, but please don't you break it, 'cause love is made for me and you. Love was made for me and you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, we're all muted, so we can't actually hear everyone clapping, but that was amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tom. So now I'd like to introduce everyone to Lion Ann River. I'm sure almost all of you on the call know and love her. She is our incredible chair of the Board of Trustees, and Ann has actually been the first Lion to a 2-year term on our board rather than 1. And we are so very lucky to have her, and we will miss her so much when her time as chair of the board ends. And it is now my pleasure to introduce you all to Ann River. She'll be with us in a second.
Bank shares stories from recipients of corneal transplantation, as well as honor our generous donor families. It's my honor to represent such an incredible organization. I'd like to thank the wonderful iBank staff for putting together this great day. It was quite a task, I'm sure. And now I'd like to introduce our president and CEO, Jim Quirk.
Thanks, Ann. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, I can't see you though, so see if you can spotlight yourself.
Could you advance the slide, please?
Yes.
There we go.
Oh, I see now.
Okay. So I'd just like to echo what Ann and Alex and everyone else has said so far. Thanks for having a little faith that we can pull this off virtually. I know it's been a challenge for the staff, and most of us do really look forward to this event once a year. Because at the iBank, we typically deal with the clinical side of donation. We do the recoveries, we evaluate tissue, we partner with surgeons and distribute tissue. And that's really where historically the relationship would stop. So having the ability to interact with those that directly benefit from the service we're so privileged to provide is really a blessing and a wonderful gift. And we're so thankful that you're all willing to share that with us. The slide that's up in front of you now was the very beginning of our gratitude platform, if you will, here at the iBank. So this is a 4x8 cardboard board that's back in our copy room. And it contains letters and correspondence back and forth between grateful recipients, wonderful donor families. And I'd just like to highlight a couple things about this board for you before I introduce to you our speaker. You see a couple of pictures scattered throughout the screen, but if you focus your attention to the lower left-hand corner, you'll see Alex with her gifted surgeon, Dr. Rapuano, who I know is with us today. He's the chief of the cornea service over at Wills Eye. And then if you look towards the middle, at the bottom, you'll see a photograph with one physician, John Cropsey, in a lab coat, and I believe it's 8 cornea recipients in Burundi. And the interesting thing to me about this picture is that those 8 transplants were the first ever in that country, and we provided that tissue through our Gratitude Tissue program. But those of us that live in the United States were so fortunate, as Eileen said, she didn't have to wait for her transplant. But if you had the misfortune to have been born in a country that doesn't have a sophisticated or integrated iBanking system, you could go your whole life with a disease that could be easily treated if you were fortunate enough to be born somewhere like the United States. So very proud that we were able to provide that tissue to this wonderful surgeon, gifted surgeon, and that we were able to take part in that milestone event to grant sight to these 8 individuals who otherwise wouldn't have had it. So now what I'd like to do is introduce to you, and I have to find her because we have a longer list of people.
Oh, I can find her for you.
You can find her. If you could find her and unmute her, that'd be great. I'm gonna introduce to you Megan Steer. Megan is the mother of baby Mila, and you can all see that picture there. And now, not only is she baby Mila, but she's big sister baby Mila. Mila has undergone a cornea transplant, but I like to leave it up to her mom to tell that story and maybe share with you something that the iBank delivered to their family yesterday, just before this event. So Megan, if you're there, please hop in.
Good morning, everybody.
There you are. Good morning.
And she actually just saw herself on the screen and said, Mila. And we also are so thankful that you dropped off the framed newsletter that we'll grab real quick before we share our story.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I'm Megan, and this is my husband, Luke.
Hello.
And my daughter, Mila, and the newest addition to our family, baby Lucy. We're going to share Mila's story and express how grateful and fortunate we are that Mila received the gift of sight. We hope everyone is staying well. Uh-oh. We hope everyone's staying well during this time of social distancing. We have been taking a lot of family walks during this time, and Mila loves pointing to all of the flowers and smelling them. That's her newest favorite activity. She likes to point to the red stop sign when we ask her where the color red is, and saying purple when she sees purple flowers. She's also been playing with some toddler apps on her iPad and learning how to count. And it's incredible how she knows how to work the iPad better than we do. Sometimes Mila likes to sit on our step and by our front door and look at the sunset shining through the glass, casting rainbows on our wall. And she screams, "Rainbow, rainbow," and she touches all of the rainbows. Another one of our favorite pastimes right now is watching Disney movies together. And 2 years ago, none of these activities would have ever been possible because Mila was born blind. Luke and I were so excited to welcome our firstborn daughter into this world. My pregnancy was totally normal with no indication that there were any issues. And when Mila was born, we immediately noticed that she wasn't making eye contact and that her, Mila, sorry, it's lunchtime. Her left eye wouldn't open at all and her right eye looked really milky. We couldn't see either of her pupils. So no one at the hospital knew what was wrong, and we didn't have any answers until right before we were discharged. An ophthalmologist from CHOP took a quick look at Mila's eyes, and she told us that she had a rare eye condition called Peter's anomaly, and that she was born blind, and that there would be no hope for any sight in her left eye, and that her right eye wouldn't be able to see anything more than shadows, even with corneal transplantation. So instead of leaving the hospital joyful when our daughter was born, we left with so many unanswered questions and fears. Anyone who has children knows that they would do anything possible to fight for the best outcome for their child. So we spent countless hours during the first few days of her life researching what her future could be like and what doctors would be best for her. Through an online support group, we were led to Wills Eye Hospital and 2 outstanding doctors to completely change Mila's life. And I think one of them is joining in right now. So shout out to Dr. Rapalano. Thank you. At 3 months old, Mila had a surgery on her right eye to improve her vision. And at 4 months old, she underwent a corneal transplant on her left eye. The eye that the NICU doctor told us was hopeless with no chance of sight. She's had a total of 8 eye surgeries so far, but her transplant is still holding strong. And she has usual vision in both of her eyes. She has had that for over 18 months now. The vision that she's gained in both eyes has allowed her to look at our faces and smile, to kiss her baby sister Lucy, to antagonize and chase after our dog Leo, to see me coming from across the room and yell, "Mama!" to read picture books with us, to run across the backyard chasing after her ball, to reach out and touch her flowers when we're on walks. It's really incredible. We don't know how well she sees, and we're told that 20/20 vision is unattainable even with glasses because of her condition. But we're 100% positive that she sees more than we could have ever hoped for. She's running across the backyard and locating her balls, which are 30 feet away. It's incredible. My daughter's donor provided her with an amazing gift, a chance to see the world around her. She provided our entire family with hope for our daughter's future, and we're so thankful that we connected with the eye bank and also got a glimpse of what Mila's future could be like. It's so good to see other children who were transplant recipients like Casey and Peyton who are also thriving. We wish we could be celebrating with all of you in person, and we wish that we could be celebrating another year, you know, with Mila's incredible gift of sight with all of you. But we hope that next year's celebration will be just as great. So we're looking forward to seeing all of you guys next year at the 6th annual Transplant Luncheon, and we hope that everybody stays well until then. Want to say hi? Say bye-bye.
Say hi, Mila.
Who am I?
Hi, Mila.
You say hi?
Say hi.
Hi, Mila. You're eating your finger? Must be tasty lunchtime.
All right. Thank you so much, Megan, for sharing that story and for sharing your family with us. I know that hearing from those of us that work here is one thing, but actually being able to put a face as beautiful as your daughter's with the story is so beneficial and so meaningful to those that stand behind our cause. So now I have the privilege of giving you a quick rundown of the eye bank and the services and what we do provide and what we can do for you and hopefully ways for you to get involved with us. So what is an eye bank? An eye bank is an organization that recovers, processes, evaluates, and distributes donated corneal tissue to transplant surgeons for their patients who are awaiting a sight-saving or a sight-restoring transplant. I don't have control of the slide, so
Yeah, I'm clicking.
if you click it, that'd be great. So when I started eye banking way back when, there was one kind of eye bank. Eye banks was a group that went out and recovered eye tissue for transplant. And over the years, as technology has evolved and as the profession has evolved, there have been several different types of eye banks that have come to life now. You have eye banks that perform only functions related to the eye. You have eye banks and tissue banks that recover eye tissue as well as musculoskeletal, cardiovascular tissue for things like, burn patients require skin, bone patients may require bone donations for orthopedic surgery, that sort of thing. We have recovery-only centers, which are banks that only go out and do the recovery component, and then they pass that donation along to another center, which will be a processing-only center that would take that donated tissue and process it. And another eye bank would be a distribution center only, where they take the work of two other organizations and then find a home for the tissue. And then finally, you have multi-center eye banks where it's sort of like a franchise, if you will. There's a parent company in one city. They may have 3 or 4 different locations in other parts of the country. All of whom are, if you go back real quickly, all of whom hopefully are accredited by the EBAA, which is the Eye Bank Association of America. That organization is responsible for setting medical standards to ensure the safety and quality of all tissue that's distributed for transplantation. So a brief history. The first cornea transplant took place in 1905. So, well over 100 years ago, 115 years ago now. And some of the highlights of eye banking as a profession, in 1995, we were able to eliminate a waiting list, which was huge. So most of the physicians we partner with today weren't around in the days where there was a waiting list. There's a handful that are still with us, but most of them that have gone through fellowships since the mid-90s, early 90s, are just used to a cornea being in the refrigerator when it's time for a surgery. And prior to that, that certainly wasn't the case. So there were people that would have to wait weeks, months, years sometimes, and would even go blind before they had access to quality donor tissue. Eye banks were once staffed by volunteers. I see a lot of Lions on the call today. So Lions will be responsible for taking donor call at night, calling funeral directors to do recoveries, and then sometimes calling the residents in the hospital to do the enucleations and bring them back to the hospital for transplant. That's changed quite a bit. So now we're fully functional 24 hours a day with professional staff, both administrative and technically. And one of the biggest changes to eye banking has been the federal government's involvement. The FDA now regulates eye and tissue banking. They're responsible for requiring various infectious disease tests and donor screening modalities that ensure the safety of the tissue. And of course, since 1905, as you can imagine, we've had tremendous advances in technology. Corneas are now typically recovered within 12 hours. And the cells of the cornea that Eileen talked about, the endothelial cells, can be kept viable for up to 2 weeks post-recovery in some specialized storage media. Quick history about us. The Lions Eye Bank of Delaware Valley was founded in 1957. So in the early years, we were located at the old Wills Eye Hospital over on Spring Garden Street, and then later to 8th and Walnut. But in 1996, the eye bank merged with a smaller eye bank in Delaware, forming one organization, and we service all of Delaware, southeastern Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. We partner with Wills Eye, with Lions Clubs International, and if you take a look at the bottom of the bottom right-hand corner of the slide there, you'll see that we've highlighted the circle. We didn't mean to discriminate against Delaware and New Jersey. We just had a Pennsylvania license available. But we highlighted that circle around organ donor. And without the donors, of course, none of this would be possible. So a big part of our mission is to advocate for the need for eye, organ, and tissue donors. They're so valuable and make such a difference in people's lives. Our departments at the eye bank, it's just like any company. We have a quality department that, after tissue is recovered and information is gathered from a medical chart, those folks ensure that the donor is compliant with the standards. We have a technical department that does the recovery, the evaluation, the processing, and the distribution of tissue. We have a community relations department that does what we're doing today, helps us spread the word about the need for donation and reach out to the folks that are interested in hearing what we have to do. And then we have the development department that raises money for our programs that are not typically funded through our typical revenue streams. The pictures we have here, one was a team building exercise that we did over at Kick-Axe over on Market Street. Any of you who have not done that, I can highly recommend it. You go in there and drink a few beers and throw axes down the lane. So you should give it a try. It's a lot of fun. And on the right-hand side is our holiday party this year that we had with our chair back in December. And it looks like Alex is wearing a turkey hat to keep things lively. So the gift of sight, the way it happens, a lot of people may not realize, like I said, without a waiting list, folks can go to their surgeon, get told they need a transplant, and then 2 days, 3 days later, sometimes a week the most, the transplant can happen on a scheduled basis. It wasn't always that way. And the way it happens is hospitals make a call to our partner Gift of Life Donor Program to let them know that someone has deceased at the hospital. A medical review is performed and then an authorization from a next of kin is obtained, or in many cases, the individual may be a donor on their own, a first person consent, they call that. So when you look at that driver's license and it's circled organ donor, that means that that person decided on their own that they wanted to be a donor should that time arise. So after we have a medical review and authorization, we perform a physical inspection of the donor, recover tissue, and then the tissue comes back to the eye bank. And just like all of us that go to the eye doctor, the corneas get an eye exam. So the corneas are evaluated with a slit lamp so we can check all the layers. We look for things like infiltrates, which could be an infection that takes place over time, or exposure to the outer surface of the cornea may be dried up a little bit. We look for health and viability of the endothelial cells with a specular microscope. If all those things check out and the medical conditions are ruled out and the infectious disease testing is negative, then we release that tissue to a surgeon for awaiting transplant recipient. And then we provide post-donation support through things like our recipient kit, which facilitates the communication between recipients and donor families. And we can provide people with resources and contacts to speak with people if they need to find any support, whether it be for things like Megan said. One of the great things about this recipient luncheon when it first kicked off was we had the Barkalow family with us. And Tracy Barkalow and Jimmy Barkalow brought their son Peyton, and there was another family there, and forgive me, I can't remember their name right now, but they had a younger child and they were having difficulty identifying resources to make things easier for their child, because there aren't that many children that have transplants, particularly in any one given area. So they were able to get together, and up until this point where we had this outreach program to recipients, there really was no way to connect those folks together. So from my perspective, I mean, that made the whole event worthwhile, seeing this young family being able to communicate with this other family and learn how to take care of their child from the experience of the other child's transplant. So I talked a little bit about processing and how we've come a long ways technologically. I hope you can all see this slide. What's interesting about this to me is the top right corner is an old square graft. The gentleman who's pictured in that graft, I believe, still walks around the Philadelphia area. I think he was Dr. Leibson's patient. And back in those days, they didn't have the technology to create a circular tree fine for a circular graft. So they would machine a square tree fine. I don't know if it would be called a tree fine back then. Dr. Rapuana can say yay or nay. But they would punch the diseased cornea out and suture in the donor cornea. And if you swing down to the lower left-hand side, that's a picture of two running stitches for a penetrating cornea transplant or penetrating keratoplasty. You can see that it kind of looks like a baseball. The donor cornea is sutured in with two sets of sutures, and it's held in place like that. And sometimes those stitches can remain in place for quite a while, a year or longer. And then if you go to the center slide, that is a bunch of interrupted sutures, but it's also a penetrating keratoplasty, and that happens to be Alex's transplant. She was generous enough to lend us her image so we could share that with you. But the one thing that I've never had a transplant, but the feedback that I've heard from talking to people over the years is that's the one thing about the procedures that's a little bit irritating, is they have these sutures in their eye for a long time. And those of us, we've all had an eyelash stuck in your eye, right? You know how annoying that can be. Imagine having that 24/7 for a year, year and a half. So go to the final picture there at the bottom right-hand slide. That is a picture of a graft of an endothelial keratoplasty. The best way to describe that is, the cornea itself. So back to what Eileen said earlier, she has fuchs dystrophy. So the backside of her cornea was diseased, but the other 99% of her cornea was perfectly healthy. So I guess it was about 2004, 2005, we started to see an uptick in this procedure where only the disease layer of the endothelium was replaced. And the sort of the beauty of that was, well, it was almost a one-to-one replacement. So the diseased cornea's endothelial cells were stripped out. And back then the eye bank didn't prepare, but the surgeon in the OR would prepare the donor graft by taking off the top 95 or 96% of the graft, and then just using the endothelium with some stroma and some Decimase membrane. And then what held the graft in place there was that bubble you see. So the patient would stay on their back for a little bit. The gas bubble would hold the graft in place. The cells would come to life, start to pump, create suction, off they go. So nice strong graft, no uncomfortable sutures, and from what I gather, great visual acuity post-operatively. And that since 2005 until about 2013 or 14, there's been a steady climb in the endothelial graft world and a steady decline in the penetrating keratoplasty graft world. And about 6 years ago, I think, they sort of crossed on the chart. So the endothelial keratoplasty grafts overtook the penetrating grafts, and that's where we are today. And quick question for folks. How many transplants do you think we've facilitated here since 1957? You can type it in or not. We'll just tell you. Over 46,000. So if you look at this is a picture of Citizens Bank Park. On a full day, that whole place holds about 46,000 fans. So your eye bank, through your efforts and the generosity of Delaware Valley residents, has provided enough corneal transplant tissue to fill the whole Citizens Bank Park, and that's pretty amazing. So I know, for one, I'm very proud of that accomplishment. None of it will be possible without our tremendously dedicated staff that make this happen. The donor families who define what it is to be generous and altruistic, and as well as the gifted surgeons and their teams that perform these amazing, miraculous surgeries on a daily basis. So thank you. I think at this point it goes back to Alex.
So something we like to emphasize today is that each transplantation and each donation journey really is unique and meaningful. And it's one thing for our staff and our board members to talk to you about the impact of donation and how amazing it is and how life-changing it is. But when you as a recipient share your story with others, it becomes that much more powerful. So we hope that when you leave here today, whether you are a recipient or not, that you feel inspired to share the success of your transplant or to share some information from the events that you learned today, and encourage your friends and family to register themselves as eye, organ, and tissue donors. It's super easy, and we'll go over how to do that at the end of the presentation. But Transplantation Works, and this event really is a testament to that. This picture that we have on this slide right now is a picture of Casey and Mila that was taken at our Phillies tailgate this past fall. I'm not sure if we could highlight, I know that Casey and Mila are on the call right now. I saw Casey earlier. We could highlight them so we could see them. But this picture, all of us at the eye bank really love, because it's a photo of Casey, who's been in our lives for so long now, and then little Mila, and they're just working together to get one of the bean bags into the cornhole hole. So we just thought that was a really cool moment, having these two girls come together and play. And we can't wait for hopefully more in-person events where we can all get together and do things like this again. So if it hasn't been emphasized enough, the power really is in each and every one of you to share our mission. The Eye Bank Association of America created the Power of You campaign, and it's supposed to support National Eye Donation Month, which is every single November each year. And they actually used one of our very own recipients, Cameron Whittle, for this campaign. And it was shared with all of eye banks across America, which was really cool. So we've got a celebrity in our midst. And Cameron received his transplant at the age of 13. He is finishing up his junior year of college now, and he's been volunteering and with us at the iBank ever since. So like Jim touched upon earlier in our presentation, it's so important to remember that for every life that was restored, a life was lost. And cornea transplantation would not be possible at all without selfless donors who make the gift of sight for recipients like myself a reality. And eye donors and their families are heroes who define what it means to be truly altruistic. There is no greater gift that someone could give. And we are so honored and grateful to have with us today Melanie Penna. Melanie and her family lost their son Anthony in a tragic accident in 2017. And Anthony is a cornea donor who restored sight to 2 individuals in Pennsylvania. And because of that, his life and his legacy live on. And ever since then, the Penna family, spearheaded by their daughter Gabby, have been incredible advocates for eye organ and tissue donation. And we are so grateful to have Melanie on the call with us today. So it is my pleasure to introduce you all now to Anthony's mom, Melanie Penna.
Thanks so much. And thank you for letting me have a few minutes just to talk about Anthony. If you're looking at the photos, to the far left is all of us for a Christmas party that we would host every year. The second one in is Anthony and his favorite place at the beach here in New Jersey, and it's in this house where I'm doing this presentation today. I thought I'd come to his favorite place for this moment. The next one is Anthony playing his trombone. That's probably one of 5 times he actually picked up his trombone and playing at a concert. And then the final photo is all of us as a family seeing Pope Francis, which was a really spectacular moment for all of us when the Pope visited Philadelphia. So Anthony was 1 month into his junior year at Archmere Academy in Delaware. He was very active, good student. Very musical, played obviously instruments, but also sang in the elite master singer choir there. He was also active in soccer and lacrosse. It was Friday morning leading up to homecoming weekend. Anthony was driving himself and his sister to school when he crossed the line and hit a car head on. Upon talking to the investigating officer who did the investigation at the scene, all evidence points to Anthony having fallen asleep at the wheel. He was revived at the scene and brought by ambulance to Christiana Hospital. My daughter was airlifted. We've been told that no one anticipated either child living. So her life and the fact that she is here with us is truly a miracle. Anthony was a registered organ donor. I accompanied him to the DMV to get his license. He didn't know what it meant to register, so on the spot I explained what it was, and he without hesitation said yes. And I was very proud at that moment that he'd made that decision, not knowing that he would actually become a donor. No parent really thinks about it happening, but I was just so proud that at his age he made the decision to register and understood what that meant and willingly accepted. It was a few days into the hospital. We needed to wait a few days anyway to really understand his prognosis. And when we did meet with the medical team and understood that Anthony had very little chance of recovery, very little cognitive awareness, and even if he did have any, wouldn't be able to demonstrate that he recognized any of us or was aware of his surroundings. My husband and I immediately asked to meet with Gift of Life personnel. We made no restriction on what they could take from Anthony. When we met with the individual, we said, whatever you can take, please take and please use. For us, being an organ donor family and for Anthony to be a donor brought purpose and meaning to his death, then and now. So Anthony underwent surgery. He was a donor of both of his kidneys, of his liver, of his corneas, obviously, and 68 other tissue samples that are benefiting up to 100 people today. So we're very proud of our son for the decision he made then, and we were very honored to carry out that decision when the moment arrived. Interestingly, a few months after Anthony passed, we were leading into our first Christmas, and you can imagine, you know, just how sad we were. And it was early December, and we came home from an event, a musical event, a concert, and we opened our mail, and there was a letter from one of Anthony's Cornea recipients. The family wrote to us to thank us for Anthony's cornea, which benefited their infant son, who had his surgery done at Will's Eye. You know, for those of you that are recipients, if you haven't written your donor family, I just encourage you to do so. You may be thinking that it's a painful reminder of death, but my experience, and I can only speak for myself, is that it's not so much a reminder of his death. We live that every day. It's really the moment where we're reminded about his life and about his gifts. And that brings tremendous joy. It certainly has my family. My daughter is, she's made a near full recovery from her injuries. Next year, she's a senior this year in this awful COVID environment we're in. But next year, she'll be going to Notre Dame, which is where my son always wanted to go. She'll be bringing both of them there to South Bend, and we will be cheering her on. Part of the legacy we also carry on in Anthony's name is, in the spirit of who he was musically, we've established a charitable fund, the Anthony Pennant Charitable Fund, where we have benefited 12 schools in 2 years with grants to their performing arts programs, because we know those are the first things to get cut, and we know that Anthony's participation in those programs is what really shaped his character. So with that, with the gifts he's made in organ donation, with the gifts we make in his name to schools and to the benefit of young people, he lives on every single day. And I'm just so thrilled to be able to share that with all of you today, to know that we recognize as a donor family that our loss was your gain. But that's what made his death so special and poignant in many, many ways. So thank you. Thank you for coming today, and thank you for letting me have a few minutes to talk about my wonderful son.
Thank you so much, Mel. There's really not much you can say. Thank you obviously is nowhere near adequate enough, but we're so grateful that you were able to share that part of Anthony with us today. And just by looking at everyone's faces right now, I know that we can all feel his presence with us now. So thank you so much. So going off of the similar train of thought that none of this would be possible without these amazing, incredible donors who give us the greatest gift that you could ever imagine. Something that we are proud of at the iBank is that we have a gratis tissue program. And so for those of you who don't know what our gratis tissue program is, or you're not familiar with it, when a patient who is prescribed a corneal transplant surgery but cannot afford the associated cost needs one, the surgeon will contact our iBank and request gratis tissue or donated tissue. And our iBank believes that a person's ability to pay should never interfere with their ability to see. So if someone needs a corneal transplant and they come to us, we'll make sure that it happens. And in 2019, Lions iBank provided 35 gratis tissue corneas to your local community, and we provided 109 corneas abroad for sight-saving surgeries overseas. And the pictures that you see on the screen right now are one of our recipients from this past year. Simeon was one of the 100+ recipients who received gratis tissue from us. He's actually on the call with us right now. I'm going to spotlight him, but I know he's having trouble with his audio, so I'm not going to put him on the spot. But that's another silver lining of having this virtual event. He's in Kingston right now. He would never have been able to attend our small recipient luncheon. So we're very grateful that he's able to be with us here today. And I was lucky enough to be able to transport Simeon's cornea tissue to Kingston, Jamaica with our technical director, Greg. And it's been almost 6 months now since his transplant surgery. And while he's gained better vision and a better quality of life, I've also gained a lifelong friend. So I am just as grateful for it as he is. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved with our iBank. Probably the easiest and fastest way is to go to registerme.org to register as an eye, organ, and tissue donor. It actually takes less than a minute. It's very simple. And then the next easiest thing to do would be to follow us on social media. The two handles for our social media accounts, Instagram and Facebook, are up here on the screen. And following us on social media is a great way to stay up to date on any upcoming events we have, especially now in the time of coronavirus. We're having a lot of changes to events, and a lot of these changes might be made last minute. So following us on these accounts is a great way to stay informed. And it's also a fun way to see different recipients, donor families, and people in our community featured. And the last way to get involved, which we would appreciate so much, is by making a financial contribution. You just go to our website, which is linked here, lebdv.org, and you just click the Give button that is in the top right corner of the screen. And any monetary donation, no matter how big or small, is so appreciated. And the picture you see here is from the Phillies tailgate. The photo of Mila and Casey earlier on is from that same event. And hopefully we're able to have it again this year, but who knows. So on the screen right now, you'll see a list of some of our upcoming events. These dates are still good to go as of now, but like I mentioned, they are all subject to change. And just by following us on our Facebook and Instagram, you'll be kept up to date with this. August 10th, we are scheduled to have our 26th annual Gift of Sight Charity Golf Classic in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You can find out more about this event by going to our website or to our Facebook page. Sometime in September, we're hoping to have another tailgate at a Phillies game. And our biggest event of the year, which the date might change, is our 2020 and 2020 Gala. And that's scheduled for Saturday, November 21st, 2020 at the National Constitution Center. And there's a separate website for this event, but you can also just access it by going to our main website to learn more about it, to become a sponsor, or to make a donation. So at this point in the program, normally we'd all be in person, and we would now give people a chance to share their story, whether they're a recipient, a donor family member, whoever. And it's a little more intimidating when you have to go up to a podium to speak. So maybe since it's this more informal format, some people will feel more inclined to share. The way we're going to do it is write in the chat box if you would like to share, and then Jim or myself will find you and unmute you. So if anyone would like to share their story right now, you can go to the chat box and write in it, and we'll come find you. So we'll give people a few seconds to do that. All right, I see that we've got a bunch of people who want to share. Okay, let me go find Ken Chu. So I see that Ken was the first person who said he would like to share, so I'm going to spotlight him.
Yeah, I just want to thank Mrs. Penna for her story. She may not know I've been a Lion for a long while here in Delaware and supporting the iBank. But I also, in my career, my professional career, I taught at St. Edmund's Academy for 45 years as a teacher and assistant principal. So I very much appreciate it. I had retired before Anthony, I think, became a student. But I really appreciated hearing your story and what a wonderful young man he was. So thank you for that.
That's amazing. Thank you, Ken. We also have Stephanie Ritchie and the Ritchie family here, so I'm going to unmute her.
Hi. Hi.
Hi. Thank you. Yes.
Thanks, Dr. Apollonia.
Thank you, Water.
Okay, you want to say bye?
Bye.
Okay.
So we're almost 3, so her tolerance and attention span is short. I'm Stephanie. That was Ellie. Ellie is a bilateral cornea recipient. She received her first cornea. Oh, we're from Rochester, New York. So we wouldn't have been, and we have a 2-month-old as well. So I wouldn't have been able to attend today's luncheon had it not been virtual. So despite everything going on, I'm grateful that it worked out this way. So when Ellie was born, she was premature and she had Peter's anomaly, the same thing that Mila has, and a few other people that we've heard about. So we ended up getting connected to Will's Eye in Philadelphia, and though logistically it's been pretty tough because we travel quite often to Philadelphia for her care. Under Dr. Apolano and Dr. Levin, Ellie has received 2 corneas, one in her right eye, one in her left, in December of 2017 and the other in April of 2018. And so far, both corneas are doing well. So we've been on this journey for almost 2.5 years now, which is incredible because when she was born, we didn't know if she could see us, like look at us and see, hey, like, is that mom, is that dad? And now she's like finding things on the floor that sometimes we wish she wouldn't find, which is incredible. She knows her colors, she knows letters, she knows shapes. She does have a lot of challenges ahead of her, but we are forever grateful to the 2 families who have gifted our daughter sight, because we never thought that we would have that. And I'm gonna get emotional, but it's just such a humbling experience to be a part of this family. And also, I mean, we don't even live in the same state to receive care in that the eye bank is in. So I'm proud to be in this family and just so grateful. And it is not lost upon us what had to happen in order for our daughter to be able to see. But again, we are just grateful, and she's doing amazingly well. And it's just, and what everyone does with the eye bank is incredible. So just thank you all around for everything.
Thank you so much. What a lot of you don't know is that Stephanie, Eliana, and her family are actually going to be featured on this coming year's Foresight newsletter. It was supposed to be released by now, but because of everything going on, it's gotten pushed back. But we're so excited for it to be published in the future and for everyone to get to hear more about their story and see really adorable pictures too. We also have my brother who said he wants to say something, so I will unmute him. Michael, did you want to share something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I don't live in the same state as Will's eye bank, and granted, I don't know the family that well of the people that really changed my sister's life, but I just want to say, like, I'm just thankful for this whole community, because I know how much it's meant to my sister and how much it's really changed her life for the better.
Thank you, Michael. That was so sweet.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Okay, I think that's a good note to end share stories on before all of us start crying. So.
We have Dr. Apolano wanted to say a word.
Oh, really? Okay. Are you able to spotlight him?
I'll spotlight him.
Okay.
There you go.
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I want to thank Megan and Stephanie for sharing Mila and Ellie's stories, and Alex too. It's wonderful to hear your stories again, and I'm glad you're all doing so well. I also want to thank the eye bank. The background to my screen here on Zoom is actually Guatemala. I went there last summer, and the eye bank provided, I think, 19 corneas gratis, so free of charge, for me to do and to teach corneal transplant surgeries to some of the surgeons in Guatemala. So it's an absolutely wonderful program, that benefited me and the patients in Guatemala, but also a lot of surgeons who go around the world to do surgery, and also surgery just in Philadelphia or locally where patients can't afford it. So it's a really wonderful program, and we all really appreciate it. So thank you, Jim, Alex, your whole team, Geraldine, your whole team at the eye bank. I know Greg Dorn's on the call. So, and David, I'm sure, everybody, wonderful job, and thank you very much. And it was great to be part of the morning today.
Thank you, Dr. Apolano. So we have 2 more slides. This is the question slide. It's obviously much easier to do in person when we can just see someone raising their hand. If you have a question, we'll leave a minute right now to type something in the box like we just did for Share Your Story. And if not, Jim has a little treat for us at the end. But I'll just wait on this slide for a few seconds to see if anyone has any questions. You can just type in the box. I'll just talk about some of the pictures, I guess, while I give everyone a few more seconds to see. A lot of the, so actually Geraldine just asked a question. She asked, who is the guy in the pink flamingo suit? I don't know if I'm allowed to unmute him right now if he'd like to say a few words. It looks like he's grown a full beard, which is really cool. We're very happy to have Lion Dave on the call with us right now, and he was actually awarded Lion of the Year for District 22, which is really incredible. So Dave, you're unmuted if you want to say anything, but we're just all very grateful to have you with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this program today. I have been offered the opportunity to join the iBank as a trustee in 1995. And I'm just so overwhelmed with the advances that have been made in iBanking, and to be able to provide the gift of sight to even infants, which is truly amazing, like we have seen today. I thank the iBank for giving me that opportunity to play just even a very, very small role, but we support the staff, Jim Quirk, and all the members of the iBank that provide the tissues to the surgeons, Dr. Rapuano and his colleagues. So I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dave. So a lot of the pictures that you see on the screen actually are from our Phillies event this past fall. And our events are just a really incredible way to bring together donor families, recipients, Lions, board members, staff, volunteers. It sounds very cheesy, but this is the first job that I've ever really loved. I was working as a teacher in New York City before this, and while I liked it, kids are great, I've never felt the passion or the love for a job like I have felt since joining the iBank team. And it's because of all the amazing people that we work with. I see a few more questions that we can address. So Tracy, hold on, it's gone now. Tracy asked, we have been told the donor has to pay normally to transplant. Is that true? That is definitely not true. There is no cost on the donor family that comes from making a donation. It is strictly a gift. Oh, and we see a really sweet message from Dawn to everyone. Ralph, will this recording be available to share with other club members? Yes, so we're recording the whole event. And then we'll be able to send it out after to everyone. So we'll just send it out to everyone who is on the call today. And if someone wasn't able to join with us today, or there's someone who you think would benefit from it, please feel free to share it with them. That would be amazing. So for the last few minutes of the in-person event, we normally take everyone from the 4th floor to the 3rd floor for a quick tour of our facility. Obviously, we can't do that today in person, but the silver lining is that rather than only being able to take a group of 10 people at a time, we're able to take a bunch of people down. We're able to take all of you down all at once. So Jim has volunteered to give everyone a virtual tour right now. I want to make sure that he is spotlighted. Let's see. I do not see him anymore. I think he joined with his phone. While we wait for Jim, these pictures are photos of the staff's dogs at the iBank. And Even our dogs are very supportive of our mission. Oh, here's Jim.
Did you find me?
Yeah.
You have to unmute me.
So you're unmuted on your iPhone.
Okay. Everyone can hear me?
Yes.
All right. I have to start over. All right, let's pretend we just got off the elevator. We're coming down the hallway. This is our main entrance. On the right-hand side here, we have our giving tree. We utilized this about 15 years ago. We moved into this suite to provide build out and equipment for the eye bank. This is where our quality staff works. And something you'll notice is on all these doors, when we first moved in here, these doors were all glass. And about 2 years ago, we decided to give the place a facelift. And we chose to spotlight recipients and their stories. So every window and door through our hallways has a story. So this is Casey, when she was just a little baby. Those of you, if you scroll around your screen, you can find her now. I think she's probably about 6 or 7. But she was one of our first stories that we shared. Over here, we have the Howies and their little girl, Svea, who's a twin. And as we come into this room, our conference room, we have a picture of our medical director, Dr. Hanish, and our expanded wall of gratitude. So this is one of my favorite things. So all of these pictures here you see are copies of correspondence back and forth between donors and recipients. And you can see some really interesting shots. This is our mascot, Cornelius. Cameron and Peyton, one of our Sixers events. Recipient Luncheon a couple of years ago. More babies. Peyton when he was just a baby and his dad. And then copies of all of our newsletters over the past 8 years we frame and put on the wall. The reason we do all of this is it's a constant reminder for staff and those that visit us why we're here and why we do what we do. And that none of this would be possible without the generous donors. And this is Megan and Mila and Luke and their dog. I apologize, I don't know the dog's name. Jana.
I think it's Simba? No, I mean
Dudley. Mina.
Leo, it's Leo.
Keep coming down the wall. There's Alex's story. There's Svea again. Here's Dawn, donor mother. Then we get back to the original wall of gratitude that started the whole thing. And this is where we started and we quickly ran out of room. So it was nice to have to build that wall to house all these letters. I hope we run out of room on that as well soon. As we come to the back here, I'll make this really quick. We get to where all the clinical work takes place. On the wall here, we have our accreditation from the Eye Bank Association of America, our registration with the Food and Drug Administration, all of our individual credentials. Very proud of that. There's Megan and Luke and Mila. They're featured on the processing room wall. And this is the laboratory really quickly. There's nothing super exciting about the lab. It's a pretty plain space. We have instrumentation here. Like I said, our corneas get an eye exam. So they get evaluated on a slit lamp. We have another instrument over here called the specular microscope. This allows us to view the endothelium to determine viability and health. Corneas are stored in a blood bank refrigerator. I don't know if you all can see, but we have a handful on the top shelf there and a couple more on the bottom shelf. Of course, with this whole pandemic we're going through, donation has been very low. So we're not procuring nearly as many corneas as we're used to. And of course, on the other side, elective surgery just got reopened last week. So that we think will probably come online soon. The first room we're in here is one of our processing rooms used for DSEC. This is where the technicians will process a cornea for endothelial transplantation through DSEC with a microkeratome, where they actually cut the cornea. And this room is our DMEC processing room, another endothelial keratoplasty procedure but instead of cutting the cornea, the technician actually peels the back layer of descemet's membrane along with endothelial cells. It's done with the aid of a operating microscope, and then afterwards another specular microscope is used to make sure that the health of the tissue is not compromised during the process. I think that's all.
Awesome. So that's all that we have for you guys today. We're so thankful that you were able to be here with us today. We hope that it wasn't too long. Normally this event goes 11 to 3. So I am shocked that our goal was to end by 12:15 and it's 12:10. So we're really proud of us. I went back to our Get Involved slide in case you weren't able to write down our Instagram or our Facebook accounts. Just make sure to have those and give us a follow. And just echoing what everyone else has said on the call today, we're so grateful for Lions, donor families, staff, volunteers, recipients, all of the people, surgeons that make up this incredible community of ours. I think that this virtual event went as well as it could have for our first virtual event. And we'll probably, unfortunately, have to do another virtual event in the future. So we'll all be professionals by then. But thank you so much again for taking time out of your morning to join us. We'll send you the link afterwards so you can rewatch it or share it with people. And like we said, please go to registerme.org at the end of this. If you haven't, it'll take 1 minute to register. Follow us on our social media accounts and check out all the upcoming events that we have on our website as well. So that's all we have. I'm going to end this in a second, but just thank you so much for joining this morning, and we'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye. All right, we're going to get out of here in a second. I stopped my share. Oh, now that I stopped my share, I can see everyone so much better. Oh. All right, bye guys.